Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. Today we're going to talk about my thoughts on Pavel here. So we have a video from the Korean side demonstrating and introducing a new hero. There is more speculation now that with Pavel being a 5-star, and of course confirmed 5-star, it's really cool that Kaurik most likely would be a 5-star as well. I know a lot of people were saying that he's a 4-star fire mage, but based on their importance in the story, I think it's possible. So I'm actually surprised Pavel's a 5-star, to be honest. I actually thought he would be a 4-star, but it's kind of cool that they're finally bringing in some male characters. I think the last significant male RGB hero was Charles, and that's a long time ago. So I'm really hoping that Pavel will be as good as he seems. At the moment of this recording, it is during the maintenance, so actually I'm expecting like probably in a couple hours we might already get the data mine on his mods. Pavel going in, he's a ranger. I'm gonna move on to the second slide here. He's a ranger, he's earth type. On the top there, you actually see that there's a Scorpio star sign, but he is actually a Virgo. So I think that's just a graphical mistake there. But he's actually a Virgo, so shares the same stats as Litica, Fire Litica that is. So very high attack, very high base speed. The HP is actually decent, but not the highest for a ranger. We're looking at like almost 6k health for like someone like Leo based rangers. Very high HP, but these ones are like more damage dealers, and the speed is really high. No crit rate increase, and of course no crit damage and no effectiveness, which I think for Pavel here is actually okay. The only gripe I would say is probably the crit rate. I think most people will start building him as a damage dealer. His S2 and S3 don't really bring much to the table in terms of crowd control, and he's got a buff, but it's self, so he's really gonna be a damage dealer. Now the base attack is very high. That's as high as any hero can get, really. Like, other than like some classes like Leo warriors, this is I think almost as high as Vildred, so like Leo thieves. So with that in mind, we actually have his imprint concentration also revealed here. 18% extra attack with the imprint concentration. Now the imprint concentration does affect after you go into a match, so it should be the base stat of your 1283 attack multiplied by the 18%, but only after it's additional to your stats you gain from your gear. So it would be your 1283 with all the gear total of your flat attack and your percentage base attack, and then plop on 18% of his base attack, which equals 230. So whatever you get is plus 230 when you're actually in the battle. Now all of his skills, if we take a look at the next slide here, all his skills, S2, S3, S1, they're all scaled on speed. Now there are some heroes who have really good speed scaling. So like, for example, Assassin Sid has one of the highest speed scalings. Assassin Kali used to be like not so great in terms of speed scaling, but now she's actually really good because she can get her own speed buff now too. Earth Sid also has highly insane speed scaling on the S3. So if this is going to be as high as them, he can be insanely strong. I think for the S2 though, we can expect some lower mods because it's going to be a cleaving attack, as well as if you do the reading, and I think most people are going off the assumption based on the reading, grants the caster increased attack for 2 turns before firing a strong blast of wind at enemies. So it seems to be a self buff before he does the damage, which is very good all in one skill. If the order is that way, then he's going to do an insane amount of damage on the S2, which I just don't I just don't think that they're gonna give him a very high attack mod, maybe like a 0.7, 0.8 with some speed scaling. And since he has high base speed, it's not gonna be too hard to get him. Yesterday I was like testing a build. I think easily for really high damage you could get him to about 220, 230 speed, and that's very simple. For like 250 crit damage, like 3.5k attack, something like that. So it's actually not that bad, especially with the T88 Hellraid speed weapons. If you roll high, those things are going to be really gold for him. So yeah, definitely farm your Hellraids. His soul burn is 20 souls, takes 20 souls, and grants an extra turn. If you watch the video, the Korean video, it actually shows that he does the AoE, he does the S2, and goes into the S3 to finish off some threats, which is fantastic. I'll talk about the soul burn thing in a bit. If you look at his Mola enhancements as well, you got a 30% damage. Now, I want to be a bit skeptical on my talk with Pavel here. Although he's built as a damage dealer, and even in the Korean video, he's sold as a damage dealer. He, like I said, he has no other like different effects other than the blind debuff that he gets on the S1. Everything else, it seems that he's just like going to be a damage dealer. And I want to be like really conservative in my talk about like, oh, he's gonna be OP, because the problem is I had that thought about Alencia, and it turned out Alencia was very, very weak in terms of damage. Yeah, sure, if you get a defense break on and you get Mind's Eye procced, she's gonna do damage, but she's not a damage dealer. She's really there to defense buff, strip, and then do like, you know, defense breaks and stuff like that. So I think my hopes for Pavel being a really, really strong damage dealer, I think is pretty high, but I just want to be a bit conservative in my estimation. Again, we will see his data mods, but I just keep that in mind that this 30% damage dealt is exactly the same as Alencia. Alencia has 30%, 30%, 30% going throughout S1, S2, S3. He has lower raw Mola damage from his S1, but we'll take a look at that in a bit. Let's see here. And in the granting the extra turn here is kind of cool. I was putting him in a spot where like Ufine is really, because of his S3, we'll talk about that in length in a bit, is sold to pretty much be an SSB killer. Ufine already does that job pretty well. Now, Ufine's soul burn is on the S3, so it goes into single target and then goes into AoE. At least that's what most people do. I mean, some people, of course, they can choose on Ufine to go the S3 20 soul burn. You get a double turn, you get an extra turn, you do a single target attack, and then you can finish with an S1. You can do a single target attack and maybe potentially leave a 50% defense break. On Pavel here, you get a different kind of dynamic because it goes AoE first and then you grant an extra turn. Now, I don't think there's any reason in Pavel's case to not use the S3 right after he does the S2 if you soul burn it. The only problem, of course, is if you do that, there's higher chance of getting, like, let's say Elbrus Ritual Sword in the face. Like, so for example, Charles is on the team, but what I like about this is because it's a really good setup for C-Dom as well. So you might not need to rely on, let's say, an Oxlot. If you could get Pavel to like 150 speed and your Oxlot is about like 140 speed, you could play around with, like, you know, Pavel going with the soul burn, you know, pumping up C-Dom first. You're already doing a lot of damage, and then you could bring Oxlots in to maybe push up C-Dom again to nuke out another potential threat, or even Pavel himself. But at that point, I think you're going to do a lot of damage already. I take into account that his S3 will ignore damage sharing. So we move on to the S3 now. 4-turn cooldown if you Mola it at the +3. Again, as you can see there, another 30% raw damage. Now, this is obviously cool. This is a new mechanic. As you can read there, Destructive Pursuit swiftly cuts and shoots the enemy. When the enemy is not an elite boss or monster, damage sharing effects are ignored. Damage dealt proportional to the caster's speed. In the video, they're really hard selling that you know, those heroes with the damage share innately are ones like SSB, ML Crozet. ML Crozet does it for the team, where SSB puts the damage share on the frontliner, and then Eaton, which has innate Aureus, pretty much a 30% innate Aureus. So it's basically saying that no, that will no longer work. And of course, heroes with Aureus will no longer share that. Now, I don't think that this is gonna be, I think to market him and to sell Pavel, this has to be one of his, I would say, the only OP skill. I think they're trying to create heroes now that would spice up the picks in RTA. So for example, if someone gets the first pick, let's say they got SSB, then you can counter with a Pavel right away. But if you get the second pick and they don't pick SSB right away, you can pick SSB and Pavel. So you take away the Pavel from their team comp. But of course, it doesn't mean that just because he could kill SSB means that he should be pulled. But I do like the fact that he has like multiple ways to deal damage, and like I said, with the C-Dom CR boost, that doing an AoE into the S3, or he has a blind chance in the S1, it still makes him decent. It's just that I don't know how crazy he is. Someone on stream was saying that maybe he's comparable with Surmia. I think in a way, yes. Surmia obviously does 50% ignore defense, but she can do her own greater attack buff. So almost the same. So they kind of like, they don't even need Ox slots. They could just literally use green lots, and they could self buff as long as you got souls, at least for Pavel's case. But we'll have to see. Again, I'm being a bit reserved in terms of saying that, oh, this will be an OP skill, but I think that for him to be marketable, this S3 at least has to have pretty decent damage mods, at least up to a Sid level damage mod. It's like Sid has like a 1.6 attack mod. I forgot what the speed scaling is, but it is pretty high. It's like, I don't know, it's like 0. No, I don't remember. I don't remember exactly, but it is very high. If you can get to Sid with a speed buff even, woo! That's really crazy. That's why people really like running that Yuna with him. Now, I will say this. With the new artifacts kind of released, the Thief one in particular, the one that grants an attack buff to a random ally except the caster. If you're using a non-attack skill, I think it's going to be kind of cool. I'm already picturing like people going to be running some Ruzid comp with that, and maybe running another damage dealer going into a GVG fight. And Pavel in that case would be able to get a speed buff. He can grant his own attack buff, so I mean, you could run like a C-Dom or a Melissa, someone to hold Toggle's Ancient Book, and that could be pretty cool. But anyways, I'm just thinking off the top of my head of like what kind of potential toys we could play with in the next little while. But ideally, if you can get him with a speed buff after even building him really fast, I think that would be ideal. Let me think here. Two soul on this one. On the S2 though, I will say this. Yeah. It requires 1 soul. This requires 2 souls. Not super crazy. Again, fortune cooldown on the S3 here, so it's pretty standard for nuking S3. Hurricane Sword is his S1. Acquires 1 soul as well, and if you Mola this, you get up to a 75% chance to decrease the hit chance for 1 turn. So the blind debuff, again, proportional to caster speed. I don't know. Because this one has a debuff in it, this one most likely will be the weakest, or actually no, I would say the second strongest skill that he has. Most likely the S2 will be the weakest, S3 will be the strongest, and this one will be like medium, maybe like a 1x mod. The Mola damage here is only 20% though. It is only 20%, so it's quite low. So most likely I think he's gonna be like those kind of one-shot wonder type of heroes, but I am hoping that they do him some justice here. Surmia is actually very strong, even if you just use the S1. Let's say if you don't kill with the S3, the follow-up on the S1, if she has a greater attack buff, is insanely high. She thinks she has like a 1.1 or 1.2 times attack mod on the S1. Very, very strong. Yufine has a 1.3 with the exclusive equipment. I don't know if I would expect anything higher, since it does a hit chance down, which is a pretty OP debuff. But I'm assuming 1+, so higher than 1. Yeah, Pavel is a ranger, yeah. Yeah, so I think my thoughts. I'm basically closing this already. It's not gonna be a really long one. My thoughts on Pavel. I think he's pretty. It's really exciting again for me that they're introducing more male heroes. Charles. Everybody knows that I love my Charles, and my Charles is my my in-game avatar. Pavel looks cool. I like him in the story. Not much character development from my reading, at least. Like, not as much as like Violet. He's not as lively, but in terms of a character, he's cool. I think he has potential, and like I said, I think in RTA, I think the devs have seen the over choosing of SSB as like one of the top, like the highest picks, and SSB is very solid. So he might be able to counter that, but I think he's gonna bring a lot of different dimensions to it. We're just hoping for the higher damage mods, and he's gonna be 100% like worth pulling for. I myself, I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna go for the imprint. I've been pulling too many imprints for too many banners, which is just not good. So I'm really out of bookmarks. But in terms of like, I think if anyone's a whale. Yeah, I mean, there's no wrong getting an additional 230 attack, right? That's actually pretty hard to get. So that's my thoughts on Pavel here. I can't wait for his arrival, and we'll probably see the damage mods soon. So I'm gonna end for the video recording sake. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.